Before this video begins, I want to give a huge shout out to my supporters, Logan XD, Googly Woogly Woo, Flash, Feedin' the Kitty, and Egan. Thank you guys so much, it means the world to me. And now, on to the video. Hello, welcome back to a new video. Sorry if I sound a little sick today. I've been dealing with a cold for the past few days, but hopefully it'll go away pretty soon. This Monday, I decided to take it easy a bit and work out another shader. So I made this shader, which is the Aurora Borealis. Well, at least I try to make it look like it. I think it looks pretty cool. Yeah, we can take a look at the shader graph for that. So what I have is a bunch of things. Actually, I don't need these anymore. Let's get rid of those. So what I've done was I basically took where do I even start? I have this gradient noise here, which is pretty much the base of it. And, oh wait, no, this one. So I've got this gradient noise here, which is the base of the effect. And I have this tiling and offset piece right here. Can I make this smaller? No? Okay. So this basically makes the gradient go downwards, so it kind of animates it in a downward position, and filter through a smooth step and a green color, or you can choose the color, but this turns it green, and put that into the albedo and emission. And then I use this again for the alpha to make it invisible in between the streaks. And then I also have this sort of circular gradient, which kind of smoothly cuts it off at the edges, because otherwise it would be like really rough edges and it wouldn't look very good. And then this whole section over here was this thing animates this gradient noise horizontally, and the purpose of this gradient is to distort the UVs. So let's see if I take this out. Yeah, so if I take that out, it pretty much just goes, it's like the default gradient noise streaks that go downwards, and then this thing kind of like distorts them and makes it more natural looking, I guess, more randomized. And that's basically the whole effect. I have it set up on a massive plane that's 100 by 100. And I just have it 100 units in the sky, and it looks pretty dope. For the ice breaks here, I changed the Fresnel color to match the Aurora, and I think it gives off a really cool effect, like it's being, like it's reflecting the light from it. So, yeah, that's been my Monday. Tuesday, I think I'm going to keep working on that inventory system, try and make it work again, and we'll see what happens from there. This Tuesday I went through the clothing system and I fixed the little bugs I was having. So if we open up the clothing system, you can see we no longer get that index error. And the reason for that was I had the clothing menu updating in start and in on enable. So on enable, basically when the object is enabled, it gets called. So it was being called twice when I started it up for the first time, which caused that error. So that got fixed. And then I also fixed the problem where the menu would always start on this position, even when he was wearing clothes. So now it defaults to the ones that he was wearing. And yeah, I think, well, that was most of the problems. There's still one quirk with it though, where if you get a new item that's the same, like if you get a duplicate item and then you start scrolling, it will automatically set the index to that new item, which isn't that big of a deal because I'm not planning on having duplicate items in the game anyways, so I don't have to worry about that. But it also doesn't really cause anything game breaking. It just it's a visual thing that's kind of weird, but I don't have to worry about it since there won't be two of the exact same gloves that you can find in the game in the final version. So now that I got that figured out, I can either keep working on the item pickups to make them look nicer, or maybe I can finish the redoing the platformer controller, but we'll see how that goes. On Wednesday and Thursday, I started redoing the platformer script once again. I'm doing a different approach this time, trying to make it cleaner and more efficient. With the old system, I basically used enumerators to differentiate the different states that the player is in. So like platformer would be like walking and jumping, slide, dive, punch, transition, and dialogue. And it would just, on every update call, it would go through this if-else statement, checking all the platformer states. And this works pretty good for if you have like a small character script with only a few states and not much happening within the script. But as you can see with my original one here, it gets pretty beefy. This one ended up being almost 600 lines of code. This one was my second attempt at redoing it, I should say my first attempt at redoing it, but my second attempt at making it. And I went with the same approach, and it also kind of got out of hand. So I decided to do this different approach where it's called a finite state machine. Essentially, it's like the same sort of idea with the enumerators, except for each state you're making into its own class. And so the base of each class is centered around these four methods. So when the state starts, then enter gets called, and then every update execute gets called, every fixed update fixed execute gets called, and when the state ends, or when it changes to a new one, then exit is called. And so right now I just have move state. This is what I was working on today. Wednesday I was pretty much just like writing down all the different things that I think I would need. So this is the main class where all the transitions will take place. And you can see I have a list of all the different states that I want to have. Some of them might be like these two will probably be in the move state at the end of it, but I'm just going to keep them separate for now. But essentially, yeah, so here the update and fixed update methods are called, and then I just run that through, or I run the fixed update state machine methods. State machine basically just controls all the methods in the iState interface. This is where all the transitions will take place though. So as you can see, when we first start the game, the state machine calls change state, and we change it to the move state, which is the basic movement. Of course, we want to start on that. Maybe eventually we'll start on the scene transition, where it kind of like walks you into the scene. But for now, we just start on the move state. And then say if we want to change to like slide state, in update we'll check to see if certain parameters in move state are met, and also if we're pressing the slide button. So say if we do like input get slide button, then we'll check if let's say move state dot grounded is true, and we'll expose that variable in that move state. But if those things are met, then it'll transition, and we'll do change state to slide state. And once I've created that method or that class, then it'll transition to that. And that's I hope I explained that well. I'm not the greatest at explaining code, but that's yeah, that's how it works. And so Friday I'm gonna keep implementing new states, and hopefully things work. So far it's been working pretty well. So yeah, we'll see. This Friday I was redoing some things again with the platformer script. So I'm not using the thing that I showed on Thursday, but this new one is a similar concept. The problem I was having with the one from yesterday was I was having a hard time getting references to each of the states, which I needed for some transition things. So this new way, it's not as secure, I think, but seeing as it's a single player game, it doesn't really matter that much. So what I've done is I basically have a public reference to each state as I implement them, and then I have the base class, which is here. I just have that as the current state, and then I have change state here, so and it's public, so when I go to a certain state, it adds the reference to the base to the actual state itself, and then I can change states from each state. So like I can go from move to slide, and I can reference that from move, given certain parameters. So you can see right here, I just call owner change state and then owner slide state, because the owner has a reference to all the different states. And so it doesn't look very good right now because I don't have the animation in yet, but I've got the walking and the sliding going. And yeah, let me just turn on the gizmos so it's a little easier to see what's going on. But you can see when I slide, the platformer collider gets disabled, and the slide collider gets enabled, and then when I lose a certain amount of speed, then it goes back to the platformer collider. So yeah, I'm gonna have to spend quite a bit of time still working on this, but as you can see, there's still some problems. But yeah, it'll take some time, but eventually it'll be better than platformer script to have right now. But it'll just take some time. But that's going to be it for me for this week. I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.